Well, today we have our wonderful Michelle from Standards International, also known as Little Miss Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Very excited.
All the way from the UK. So we're doing complete different time zones.
Gosh, yeah.
But it's working. It's all right. I'm happy to work around
The
the
wonders
clock.
of technology. Yeah, blimey.
Yes.
Gosh.
And I wanted to get you on the show because I came across you many years ago at an MDRT event in Sydney, and you were like almost bouncing off the stage. Your energy was just out of this world, and you were talking about really wowing your clients when you're running a financial planning business or practice. And at the time, I just sort of said, I've been in my own business for a couple of years, but I just went, wow, there's a lot of stuff I haven't even considered. And if I really want to make an impact, I've got to listen to what you have to say. Over the years, I followed you and listened to you. And then recently we met up at the AFA conference. And
we did.
There was so many things going on because you guys went through similar stuff that our industry went through.
Yeah.
And how that impacts us, mentally and emotionally when your industry is getting hammered, and we sometimes are struggling with our reputation, and when we're doing our best to serve, and a lot of people misunderstand what we do. So it was wonderful to meet with you again, and from a different angle as well, and bring in the concept of mental health and mindset, and it gave me a broader scope of what the value you offer to your community, but our community. So I thought you'd be perfect to talk to about just getting mindset right, whether you're self-employed, employed, in a job, wanting just to make a difference in your life, and also there's going to be obviously colleagues of ours that are listening to this as well. So if you are in a practice, how to make it amazing, because that's basically what you do. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, when I went to your website and I thought, let's just get an update of where you're at and what you're doing, and I was really curious, and I saw this awesome little recording on a story about the taxi and the limo, and I absolutely loved it. Do you mind sharing that first for those who have never been to your website?
Happy to. So I was blessed at a really very young age with oodles of confidence, and I was able to talk to total strangers. So I think I've always had, we were just talking just before we started recording about being extroverts, and I think as a little girl, my mum always used to sort of find me chatting to complete strangers in the middle of the street, and I'd make best friends with them, and I'd be like 6 years old. So I've always had that bit of something. But the taxi and the limo story. So I was traveling around Canada. I was on a speaking tour. I was speaking for a financial services network, and I was 3 weeks away from home. And actually, my daughter was probably, she would have been no more than 3, I think, when I went, maybe a little bit older. And I'd been to all these cities, and I'd been talking on stage about how to have an amazing life and an amazing business, and I'd given it all the big one. Like, I'd really gone for it. Like, I was like jazz hands every session, giving it all the the large, telling everyone what to do. And I arrived in Montreal at this particular airport, and it was probably about 11 o'clock at night. And I'd got 2 massive full suitcases full of books and merchandise and shoes and everything that a girl needs for 3 weeks on the road. And it was cold. It was freezing cold in October in Canada. And I turns up at this airport, and I've got my bags, and I was like, now what? I look like death, and I just needed to get to my hotel. So you go and look for the ground transportation sign, as you do in Canada, and you kind of head out. And as I was walking towards this, I saw this sort of sign in a doorway, I kind of just glimpsed to my left, and I could see what was probably about 100 people waiting in the freezing cold at like 10:30 at night. It's raining, and they're waiting for this taxi line. Well, I just felt sick, to be honest. All I wanted to do was get to my hotel.
I've been to Canada in winter. I know how cold it gets.
It's freezing. I mean, it's
Bloody hell.
like you could literally freeze the half of side of your face off. It's freezing, right? I think no one that hasn't been has no idea how cold it is, right?
It gets bloody cold.
So, and it's late, and I'm on like flight number 8, and I'm just exhausted, right? And so I walked up to this line, looked out this window, and I was like, oh, not a chance. Then I kind of looked ahead, and I could see this sign that says limousine, and I was like, oh my God, like heaven. There wasn't a single person in this line. Red carpet. There was like those lovely kind of barrier chained off, you know, to walk. And there wasn't a single person. And I'm like, sort of looking down this line going, why are all those people there? And I'm thinking it's maybe closed. So as I stood there with my 2 suitcases, looking down this line, the thing that clicked in my head was, am I worth a limousine? That's what I was doing.
Brilliant.
As I was standing there looking down this line, looking at these people who clearly didn't feel that they were worth a limousine, and probably maybe some couldn't afford it, which is fine. But what came next was where I learned the lesson. So in a thought second split, I went, yes, I am. Sod that. And I'm working my arse off, and I'm traveling around Canada, and I'm going on stage in my little posh outfits and my makeup on. I'm worth a limousine. So off I go down the bottom of this red carpet, beautiful, like vacuumed, like hoovered, the lot, right? So I get to the bottom, and there's this wonderful woman, limousine driver, beautiful Mercedes, Audi, whatever it was at the time, I can't remember. And she's like, you know, opens the door, takes my bags off me, puts them in the boot, and I get in. And she hands me, she said, there's water, there's Evian water in the doors if you'd like to have self. I know, right? Oh, that is there. I was like, oh God, this is amazing. I don't mind if I do. And then she hands me the USB cable for my phone. She asked me what phone I had, and she handed me the cable, and she said, if you can choose some music of your choice and just basically plug your phone in. So I'm thinking, is she going to like hack my phone or something? Straight away, I went into like, oh my God, she'll have all my photos on Facebook in a bit. I'll be game over. I'll be hacked. So she hands me this cable, and I put some music on, and I just thought, this is it. But then I thought, oh my God, this is going to cost me a flipping fortune. This is like, I've got full end service. So I leant forward and I said, so come on then. I said, so how much more is this limo to that taxi to where I'm going? Like, how much difference? And she said $25, which is probably about £20. What's that? 40 Aussie dollars? About double, is it? About that, right? And I went, are you for real? And she's like, no, that's you know, is that too much? And I was like, no. And after that moment, I thought, my life, my time, my happiness, my well-being I'd have paid $90 extra to sit in that limousine and go straight to that hotel, because that line of people in that taxi line was a good hour deep, at least an hour deep at 10:30 at night. And then I was sort of sitting there as I was pondering along, and the next morning I told the story at the next session I delivered in Montreal that morning, and I thought to myself, how many people would stand in that queue and wait for that taxi? Because for whatever reason, they don't think they're worth an extra $30, $40, $50, $25. At that point, I had no idea how much it was, but I knew with all my effort, my hard work, how nice I was, how lovely I was to people, and how important I was to myself, that I was worth a limo over a taxi that night. And it just struck me, and I just thought, there's too many people in the limo line. They're living in the limo line. They're in the taxi line. They're living in the taxi line. They're living in that line. You know, they're not treating themselves to the things that they deserve. They're scrimping and scraping on stuff they shouldn't be. You know, and it comes down to the stuff you do. Like, their relationship with money is poor, so they don't think they're worth getting a brand new pair of jeans. They go to the ones in the sale. I've got girlfriends like this. So yeah, that's the story. But I can honestly tell you, Amy, it was one of those things that changed my whole outlook of myself forever. And from that moment, I won't go to the sales and buy the stuff I don't really want. I will save up and buy the pair of jeans that I want from Diesel full price or whatever, because I'm worth it. Because I'm worth it. You know, my self-worth is of a level as should everybody's.
I mean, you've hit so many amazing talking points just there in that one story. So as I said before we started, the money coaching stuff that I do is talking about our mindset and the stories, you know, things we've gathered and learned about ourselves from a very young age, and the language we're hearing from our parents and whatnot. So a lot of this is carried forward into our adult, you know, lives, and we've never really measured ourselves going, what is it that I want and worth? And a lot of people do not put themselves first. A lot of people are like the martyrs and the victims, and they sort of stuck in this state and not realize, one, they can afford it. They're worth it.
They're not worth it. It's a killer. I think it's like, I use the story a lot. Like I'll say, what happens if you get a rotten strawberry in a punnet of beautifully red strawberries? Well, within 24 hours, they're all rotten, right? Because the rot set in. The rotten strawberry has impacted everything. And that piece of self-worth generally is that first strawberry. And everything comes, you make bad choices of your boyfriends and your girlfriends if you think your self-worth is low. You don't treat yourself to good skin products because you're not worth it, or you go for the cheaper version and your skin's bad. You don't eat good food because you don't think, you'll go for the cheaper food, and then you get poorly tummy. It's just a cycle. It's a rotten cycle.
When it comes down to our sense of worth, and a financial concept as well, a lot of people I deal with they're limiting themselves and their abilities and the actual amount that they could even achieve with their goals if they actually were given direction and coaching. And a lot of people I look at their, financial plan, and the first time we do that, they're sort of trying to give me a little bit, almost too scared to dream. Then the following year, as you can actually educate them and go, we do a cash flow planning, and then I'll forecast out what that looks like, and they actually see the picture, they see the blueprint, so to speak, of where they're heading, and then all of a sudden they go, I could get a property, I could buy a house, I could actually take the holiday, and then they're giving that extra moment to dream, and it's sort of a building process, is layering, and part of the work is that psychology of going.
Well, it's unlearning. Well, you're reteaching them.
You are reteaching. That's right.
Decades of education from various sources, but you're reteaching them, and what a job you do. I mean, that's got to be the most rewarding thing about your work. It's got to be.
I definitely love doing that. Absolutely. And you have to, there's so many things, but you've got to not overwhelm it first. So, with the work that I do, it's usually money coaching or financial planning. And sometimes I start introducing the coaching into the money thing, into the sort of financial advice thing, when I start seeing patterns. And as you do the work more often, it's really easy to pick people and, where they're being to themselves tyrants, using the archetypes. They don't realize, but they're holding themselves back. I remember you saying with the webinar we did several months back with the AFA, and we'll go to talk about that in a moment. But you said, money buys two really important things. It buys you time, and it buys you things. And I just went, that's so true. And the time is often something people rob themselves of. And the things they'll skimp on. And it's like, hang on, this is your life. You're working really hard for this. Mm-hmm. What do you want out of it? Like, what is it? And I say this, let's say this is a clean slate, and there's no not wrong answer, and there's no amount of money. It just is whatever you feel you want your life to look like. If you want holidays every year, what does that look like? How does it feel? So, giving those people the chance to dream and forget the current situation, because you want to move them from that to something better.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't even know how that can happen. So your story with the taxi and the limo is a beautiful example of getting that message of, hang on, am I worth it? Of course I'm bloody worth it. I work really hard.
But what happens is, that whole conversation can link to everything. It's like, I'm treated badly in a relationship. Well, it's all I deserve. It's the best I'm going to get, right? It's making bad choices because you're not coming from a position of strength. And that also feeds into having a lot of self-confidence, watching yourself talk. There's lots of posts and stuff. You only have to search on word swags and word porn on Instagram, and there's hundreds of positive kind of messages. But there was one that I picked up a few years ago which says, it doesn't matter what you say to me, you want to hear what I say to myself, right? And we almost poison our own mind, and that's self-talk, and that comes from that first position of self-worth. So if you don't think you're worthy, you'll talk to yourself like you're not worthy. Yet what do you expect when other people then talk to you in a certain way? Because you've had a whole conversation like that with yourself. So what do you expect?
Absolutely. Yeah.
you
There's a
see.
lot of
So
unpacking you have to do.
there is. It's literally. I mean, I used to say all the time. I'm sure you do. It's like peeling the onion, one layer at a time. You just keep going until you get to the real nitty gritty. And it's self awareness. It's self analysis. And what was interesting, I've been, and this has probably helped. I've been doing quite a bit of meditating around the same time as that tour. Quite a bit of yoga because I was that away from home, and I love my fitness. And I would be doing yoga every morning in the hotel before I kind of got my day started. And probably that next morning, I remember sitting in the restaurant in the busiest hotel in Montreal. I swear it was absolutely massive, this hotel, and it was chaos. The breakfast room was absolutely chaos. And I remember sitting there in my dress, all ready to go on stage, and I almost felt like there was like a force field around me, almost like I was inside of a bubble. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
the world was craziness all outside, but in my little bubble, I was in my safety zone. And it's definitely got a lot to do with me concentrating through yoga and having some quiet and some meditation time, connecting with my inner me, which links to my self-worth, which links to my mindset of abundance, which links to my mindset of anything is possible. You know, people say to me all the time, you know, do you live in like a world of unicorn and sparkles? And I go, yes, thanks.
Yeah.
And actually, I quite like it there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But it doesn't do me any harm. Like it doesn't
No.
do me any harm. So, you know, it's so flipping important. And girls are so bad at them to themselves, particularly
Oh,
this
yes.
self-talk. It's brutal. I look fat in that. I'm ugly. I'm this. I'm that. I mean, you've had a new daughter. I've got a 9-year-old. Ruby said to me the day she went, Mom, I don't want to wear this. She said, because I look fat in this. I went absolutely flipping nuts.
Mm.
Nuts. I went, you look strong, Ruby. And I was trying to use all positive affirmations, bloody, words. But I was like, she's 9 and already it's in. It's
Yeah.
starting to creep in. We've got a lifetime of work to help people at whatever age just stop that craziness. And it all comes down to self-worth in the end.
It does. And look, I wanted to share with you, I think I told you in an email that that workshop we did with the AFA,
Mm-hmm.
I've actually worked with divorcees, women that have come out of really hard relationships. So I've started using that worksheet and,
Yeah.
and I've told them your story. And because it's always I've been through a divorce, and anyone really who's gone through a long relationship and a breakup, and you don't have to. You might even find it going for a career
Mm-hmm.
change. It doesn't have to be a
Anything.
relationship or a breakup. It could be anything that you look at your
Yeah.
life and go, I am unhappy
Trigger.
and I really need to change. There's a trigger, exactly.
Yeah.
And this, one particular woman I'm working with right now, that was an incredibly powerful thing for her,
Yeah.
because the hold her ex-husband had on her was so
Incredible.
strong. She chose to leave a lovely lifestyle, $1 million property and whatnot, and to live and earn almost nothing and a tiny little unit with her and a son. But she was feeling sorry for him. And I'm like,
Wowzers.
hang on a minute, he lives in the big house. He's living,
Gosh.
and I just reminded her, I said, remember we started talking, and I use acronyms to get people to see the
Yeah.
characteristics. And
Yeah.
although the language has changed because he's feeling bad and wanting her back, his language has changed, but the control is there. It's the same monster, different mask. So that whole work of, I want you to focus on this worksheet and I want you to think about you,
Yeah.
nobody
Nobody
else.
else. Yeah.
Nobody else, not your sons, not your ex-husband, not your friends,
Yeah.
nobody but you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And rewrite your story.
Yeah.
That has been incredibly powerful. So I want you to
Yeah. Great.
talk us through that, because I am now sending people. I mean, I talk about you and say this is a website. I don't want to steal your thunder,
No,
but I
you
think it's
steal it every
amazing.
day. Steal it because I mean, we know that this situation is not, it's not female driven. We know that, and we know that there are probably as many men in the world who put too many other people first and are suffering from having to provide for a family, and they're overwhelmed by it. We know this. However, what I think is the difference between the man and the woman predominantly is when children arrive, and it's the woman's maternal instinct that kicks in. And I've Ruby's now 9, and I remember at the time, and I'll tell the story, but just to sort of set the scene really, I remember at the time saying to mums in my mum group, are you happy? And their response was, well, of course not. I'm like, what do you mean, of course not? Well, my life has vanished overnight. Well, my life with Ruby never vanished. It changed, and my life ran parallel to Ruby's. Now, I only have one child, so it makes it a bit easier. But what happened was, when I had Ruby, any spare time that I had available was, well, pre-Ruby went to me. It was directed at me. So I had a partner, Martin, I had a business, I had a house, I had friendships, I had family, and then any sort of spare, and I had quite a big share of that time, personally. Now, when Ruby came around, my time that was for me ultimately was directed to her. So my fitness dropped off, and as it does. Well, when Ruby was about 2.5, everyone else's demands of me were the same, but my free time, my me time went to Ruby. Of course, I had to get that time from somewhere, and that's quite normal for mothers and fathers in some cases. And I remember being, I was actually in America. I'd literally come off stage. I'd done this whole jazz hands thing again on wow life, wow business. It was around the same time as the limousine taxi story. And I came off stage, and I was stepping literally 1 foot down the steps at the back of the stage. And as I was putting my feet down, I just kept saying to myself in my head, self-talk, you're an absolute fraud, Michelle. You're an absolute fraud. And I just remember my feet dropping one step. And when I got to the bottom of the steps, what I realized, because I've given it the whole have a wow life, wow business, wow this, wow that, I realized, probably just for no reason other than there must have been a trigger, that my life wasn't well, that I wasn't happy, that my life was out of control. I wasn't happy in myself. My well-being was suffering because I had no time. I was on either 3-year-old at home, and I was on a tour again of America. Like, this was no life. But I couldn't tell you how I got there, or how it just creeped up on me, as it does with all of these things, right? You don't just go from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight. It's a gradual build, which is why it became a problem. And it hit me, literally took my breath when I got to the bottom of these steps. And then I kind of parked it because then I had to go to a meeting. And then that evening, I met a guy from MDRT. It was an MDRT meeting. And I met this advisor from Canada. We've become really great friends over the years. But we were just chatting in the bar, as you do, as everyone does at kind of these meetings. And he said to me, we were chatting, and he said, do you mind me asking you a question? And I said, no, it's fine. He went, are you happy? Well, okay, now he might as well have just like slapped me around the face because I stood there and went, no. But normally I'd have gone, yeah, everything's great, life is amazing, everything's fabulous, I'm in America and I'm on stage and all that. But he was a planner. He was a great planner, life coach, right? Mentor.
He read you.
God, didn't he just? And he literally, he could have knocked me over with a feather that night. And I said, do you know what? I'm not. And this was, I swear to you, Amy, this was about 8:30 at night in the bar. We sat talking until 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And there wasn't a drop of alcohol either of us had consumed. We just talked and talked and talked and talked. Both of us about our lives, right? Hence the reason we've become such great friends. And that morning after, I literally went to my room and I wrote down 10 words, 10 areas of my life. And I realized that I was desperately unhappy. And those 10 areas became the concept that we designed as the future you. So what I did on one of those little tiny bits of paper and a little pen next to the phone in the hotel room, what I did was I projected myself forward to the eve of my 40th birthday, which was the 7th of March, the new year. And I wrote down on these little bits of paper what I wanted my life to look like, feel like, taste like, be like on the eve of that date. And what I'd effectively done without me really realizing it is I had designed the future me, the future you, the future version of myself. And in my planning, Ruby had vanished. Martin had disappeared. My business had disappeared. And that was my plan, but I had no consideration for anything other than myself doing that exercise. And I can honestly tell you, I think I cried most of the way through it. I realized that the relationship that I was in, I was unhappy in. That I didn't particularly like my relationship with my daughter because I'd not bonded with her properly, because I'd never been there. You know, she was ill some mornings and she'd shout Martin, she'd shout her dad. And I would say, I'll come. And she would say back to me, I don't want you, I want daddy. Well, you might as well have ripped my heart out, because I was always at work. Now, I created that life for sure. That was all my doing, 100%, right? I'll take full responsibility. But I changed pretty much every aspect of my life on that night by writing that out. And then I gave it no more thought other than I came home, kept it all to myself, and started making some changes. I got rid of friendships that were not really friendships. People had made their way into my life and I'd no place being there. I had no value to my life and I had no value to theirs. I started working out. I got fit. I did it all at home workout, online, YouTube. Martin and I had a conversation with Martin, and I remember he walked downstairs one day. This was the June. In about the September, I walked downstairs after putting Ruby to bed one night, and I said to him, we need to talk. And he said, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me, right? And I said, I'm not going to leave just yet. I said, but I'm not happy. And in the December, we separated because we'd spoke a lot about it. There was nobody else involved. There was no affairs. There was no betrayal. It was the fact that when I ran my future version forward to 40, he wasn't in my movie. He wasn't in my life. And me and Martin are still great friends because it was done right. And affairs are just the most horrific thing ever because they betray and people get hurt. However, they happen because it gives people a reason to leave. And the reality is, people don't need a reason to leave. They are the reason enough, which comes back to self-worth, right? And I was separating a family with a 3-year-old in it, right? It wasn't an easy thing to do. But I changed my friendship circles and my fitness and my diet and my house. And I changed it all. I got rid of people and just said, you know, when they all kicked off and said, well, you know, what have I done? I said, it's not about you. I don't feel this relationship is adding any value to either of us. But I was honest. Bravery, see? So you need a bucket full of bravery. So then I kind of started dealing with stuff myself. And then I would have conversations with planners in my work, because I coach planners and financial advisors in businesses. And I just was spotting all these signs that they themselves, their lives were out of control, because they, particularly, you know, you're a planner, Amy, you know, you probably spend more waking time changing the lives of clients' lives, that your life is naturally going to take second fiddle to whatever you're doing for clients. That's just how it is. But I realized that this was a common thing. So I started doing the exercise literally on the back of a notepad with every advisor that I sat down with, with astounding results. I started presenting on it in workshops, at conferences. And I've had messages from people on LinkedIn 2 years later saying, I saw you in so-and-so. I've now finally left my abusive husband. Or I've moved back to LA because I was living in California and I was living in, I don't know, wherever, Calgary in Canada, and I needed to go move back to Vegas. Or random stories. People I don't even remember. I never met them, but they saw my presentation. So the future you know, I'd be very happy to, on this audio, you know, for you to share this with any clients. And also we'll put the link on so that they can download their own future version of themselves. You know, and the idea basically is simple, is, you know, imagine an age or a date in your future when you're free, when you're lying, flying, sitting, sailing, you're doing whatever you think makes you the most happiest, and you sit and you design the future version of yourself. What does that, on the eve of that date, write it down, feel it, touch the words, feel the words, every word that goes on that bit of paper, connect with them, and have that and stick it on the front of your fridge. Have it as your vision board. I don't care. I created a vision board on the back of mine. So I created all the pictures and stuff, which again, I'm happy to share with you guys, but it just inspires. So when you look so far ahead and it's all about you, it doesn't matter what bounces in your path, COVID, relationship breakdowns, dramas, children, family, you've got your eye on the prize. And that's where you focus. And I repeat that exercise probably, I reckon, about every 6 to 9 weeks, because it's really flipping important that I regain that focus. I keep doing it.
That's such a powerful method by putting yourself in a future place, but the emotion, all of the feelings and the visual is really incredible when you actually put your mind to it. That
Yeah.
sort of I read Changing the Habits of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe
Oh,
Dispenza.
yeah.
I mean, he's meditative guru, right? And the concept, he sort of said the same thing. You really need to be feeling it. So when you're doing this exercise, I love that you sort of say, put yourself on the E, put the date, put that goal,
Yeah.
and how you're feeling. Because if you're in that emotional state, that's what you get that's sort of going to drive you more than anything else. Is that
Incredibly so.
feeling.
Well, and also there's that, and there's also, I've done interviews before, and they've said, give us a closing, inspirational, message for our listeners, and my response has been, well, just be as selfish as hell, because you've got to put your oxygen mask on before helping anybody else. If you're not okay, nobody's okay. Your kids aren't okay. Your partner relationships aren't okay. So you've got to put yourself first. You have to.
100%.
You're no good, half empty, no
I've
good.
just learnt that lesson all over again. I think my new baby has just been like a reminder of how I fall very quickly into the trap of being the martyr. And
Don't do it,
then
Amy.
I get resentful and I'm a nasty person to everybody. And it's just like,
Of course.
that's not me. But I then, I felt like, as I said to you before we started recording, I took myself away last night for a night off, and I did yoga this morning and putting myself first, and I felt very guilty. But that's, again, question the self-worth in myself. Why am I feeling guilty?
Well, we're guilty.
I deserve it.
But what was the first thing I said to you when you told me? First two words, I went, totally deserved. Totally deserved. Not, oh, wow, did you leave the baby? Because that, if I'd have responded like that, that says more about me than it does of you, or my feelings about you. That's all about me. So I say to you, totally deserved, because I equally deserve a night in a hotel with yoga in the morning by a personal instructor.
It was the best.
Baby or not. Because absolutely we do. And those levels of self-worth and the reward for those self-worth are that they differ. Because I'm lucky, I've got money in the bank, and I have a business, and I earn a reasonable income, so I can afford certain things. But if I was on less money, with less money in the bank, all I would do is, rather than have lots of stuff that's cheap and a bit naff and in the sale, and I would buy one pair of jeans rather than 5 pairs of cheap jeans. I'd buy one pair of jeans. So this is when you get down to quality versus quantity.
100%.
One good of something is worth 20 times 10 pairs of just rubbish that you don't really want or love. And it's all down to the self-worth conversation. Everything comes back to it. Everything.
Absolutely. The amount of times I've looked at people's financial position and been quite surprised because they have no idea of the potential their life could be, because they don't sense that they are worthy of maybe upgrading the kitchen, because they are scared to spend on themselves, or they're worthy of a better lifestyle by investing long term to have a retirement earlier than their colleagues or their family members, because they don't sense they're worthy. It's amazing.
Well, you know what? Well, I think in terms of inheritance, and obviously, you're in the business of advising clients when they come into money. Well, I've had in the last 3 years, I've had my great auntie die. I had both my grandmas actually died on the same morning in November, both of them.
Sorry.
82, one was 84. Both of them found dead in their homes the same morning, 5 streets apart. Like, this is the most freakiest day ever, right? But each of them died, and I've got one great auntie who's 94, who lives in the north of England, no children. All of them, all 4 of the women, absolutely loaded. Absolutely loaded. Like my auntie, who's 94 in York, she's probably got £1 million sloshing around in premium bonds and investments.
Wow.
She still uses the tissue paper, the toilet paper that's like tracing paper. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Her tea towels in her kitchen have got holes in them. And there is no amount of talking that we can do to get her to spend money on stuff like that. because she'll make do. So actually, my generation, your generation, we're going to be loaded, because all this money is going to drop down because the generation above who had the money never spent it. I mean, in a bit, I'm going to be flipping loaded because honest, it's so sad, but I don't want the money. I want her to spend it, but she won't, because she doesn't think she's worth X, Y, Z.
Okay, that's exactly why the behavior stuff is important, because when you're looking at a generation, perfect example, like our grandparents and even my parents, the baby boomers, before then and now, they've come from a time of war and depression and post-depression, but still
scarcity.
They came from a space of scarcity. Correct. They've come from war. They've come from a lot of disruption, and there's incredible amounts of scarcity because of the way they were raised post, the depression times as well, and that's just carried with them their entire lives.
Yeah, God.
And it's actually the way. So our behaviours are created subconsciously from our childhood. So it's what they've been taught. The language, again, language is so important. The language that they've heard when they were little ones is what they carry on and make financial decisions as adults.
So bad.
It's basically why we have these generations that are, some baby boomers are great. They're spending kids' inheritance and they've got a completely different attitude because they also came out of more of a revolution period of, post Vietnam and more hippie-like. But then there's those that are like my parents, incredibly conservative. So you've got two extremes in that one generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rebelled, but then you look at their parents and they're all very conservative. Yeah. And you've got to look at the times that they were raised and why. And that all trickles down all the way through to us. So I recognise that I'm incredibly frugal by my parents, but then there's also the inner fool of me that from my dad. My parents separated, right? So I've got these two households, very, very different.
Blimey,
and so it's very confusing sometimes when you look at my financial decisions. But if you break it down, and when I went through that whole coaching process, because I went through it as being coached to learn the process, what an eye-opener. And it really is. All comes down to how we see ourselves and our sense of worth. That is a massive foundation to it all because of what we've heard, what we're being taught from at very young ages. And basically, if we don't unpack all of that, recognize that, like you do with building your future self, if we're not prepared to really have a good look at ourselves, then we're realistically making these financial decisions as almost like 12-year-olds as adults. Because, we've got the child brain that's built in our subconscious is telling us how to behave and making these decisions. So as you put it, when it comes down to your great aunts and the grandmothers that have not spent and spent money on themselves, it's because of the way they were raised.
Absolutely. It's great for me. I'll have all this money piling in. And it's even like when I inherited from my auntie, like I was when I got the money, I mean, I inherited about, I don't know, £40,000 from her. And I remember it sitting in my bank, God, for ages. And now I'm very aware of all this stuff, but I almost felt like I needed to do good with that money on lovely things because she never had lovely things. So I bought myself a diamond ring, treated myself to a diamond ring, which I had designed in her colours and the colours that we shared, that we loved together. I bought myself a new car for Ruby and I to go camping. So I've got a nice big T5 transporter, converted with like all the pop top and like a motorhome. And because I needed to, and I wanted to do something more with that money than she had ever had. So when I had my ring designed, I had a ruby stone in it because my daughter's Ruby. So it would pass to Ruby when I wasn't around or when I decided to give her that. So it just needed more stuff to be done with that money. And I felt that was my duty, weirdly, to do that. And it was so rewarding to spend that money, not just because I could get a van, but because of the emotional background that I would put to that money. So I was aware of what I was doing to that money in the bank in terms of the emotional connection, but it felt amazing. So it was positive mindset being applied to money but to almost counteract the negative aspect that money had brought to her, because I think it stressed her out having that money in that bank, which is why she never looked at it or touched it or did anything with it. It caused her a huge amount of anxiety, which you're going to be absolutely familiar with.
Yes. Oh, look, that story, I mean, it's beautiful because you actually honored her
Yeah,
in that way, because if you recognize that money can cause anxiety. Money causes anxiety whether you have it or you don't have it. You've got to look
absolutely.
at it as from an energetic field in some respects, as
Yeah,
opposed to just the tangible,
yeah,
physical
yeah.
dollars and
Pound note.
cents.
Yeah,
So a
absolutely.
pound
Yeah,
note, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
as opposed to looking at it going from an energetic point of view. Why would someone get so anxious about it or
Yeah,
not want to deal with it? Oh gosh, there's so many clients I've come across with their heads in the sand and have done nothing with money
yeah.
sitting there, and you're looking at it going, if that was invested 10 years ago, that would be, oh, the mind
Oh
boggles,
my God.
honestly.
Yeah, 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 totally. Totally.
But and then there's also clients that do come into money and get inheritance,
Hmm.
and they do put it off for a very long time,
Yeah, yeah.
because the
So
same,
sad.
very similar to your story, but without, you've got a lot of knowledge because you come from
Yeah,
you're in industry, you're
absolutely.
working with
Mhm.
advisors that educate their clients on investing, or give direction with investing, and or work on the goals so
Mhm.
that that money is directed the way it should, ought to be for that particular person's needs.
Yeah.
But a lot of people very look at money and just go deer in the headlights, can't deal with it, don't know
Yeah.
what to do. And okay, because of that, I'm just going to put my head in the sand and pretend it's not there,
Yeah.
which is just as bad,
Well,
personally. Yeah.
it is. Well, it is, and it's a really. I mean, really, any amount of money is simply an enabler. And if you put that enabler with your self worth and your level of self worth, the two will connect. And the same as money connects to self worth, so does your relationships, so does your physical form. I had a conversation with a lady the other day because, over lockdown, I mean, I'm flipping muscled up, right? It's unbelievable because I'm working out every day because I can, right? I'm doing my squats and my weights and I love it, right? And she's like, and she's got money. And I said, she's like, what do you do? And can you give me some pointers? I went, you need to join a gym, right? There's a gym down the road for £25. She went, oh, that's a lot. I was like, no, it's not. I know she can afford £25 a month. I know she can, right? But what she won't do is she hasn't got the confidence to walk into a gym because she's self-taught herself to basically attack her body. So she doesn't want to expose herself in any way. And she doesn't think she's worthy of that level of whatever. So it's
Worthy of
rot.
spending on herself, investing in herself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolute rotten. Rotten it is.
Yeah. So going back to building your future self, it's absolutely, if you do it, and I've put myself through it, and I remember that day we did it with the AFA, and
Yeah.
I'm scribing, and I've gone back as I keep all of my notebooks.
Yeah, do
So
you? Yeah.
I write sort of like I write my motivation things, and I write things that inspire me, but I also write letters to myself.
Yeah, great.
And this one was, again, it was like a letter to myself. And I've gone back and gone, because I actually got to execute this properly. And I think I did
Yeah.
email you and went, I'm going to tell you, I've got to tell somebody, I've got to be held accountable. This is this is my birthday. And so you know my age. And
Love
this is when
it.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
It's
is where
great.
I'm at. Because I go, it's the most powerful thing if you do
Yeah.
it, and start going, okay, it's like a financial plan, but it's better than that, because
Yeah. It's
yeah,
more, just more,
it's that
broader. It's whole person.
whole person. It's a very holistic approach to complete wellness.
Yeah.
So
Incredibly
look,
powerful. Yeah.
I'm going to be encouraging everybody to jump over to your website and
But
check
Amy,
out.
honestly, right, listen, take that. I could, take that
Oh,
form and create it with your logos on it, your branding, make it yours. I don't own that. I don't. And you know what? It's you can tell the story, share the video and bits of this, but make it yours, because I didn't design that to go, well, that's my IP. It's not. It's just an exercise that I went through with those headers, with that story, and it's changed so many people. So take it, make it yours, put it into your fact find, put it into your agenda, because every client, you know, if you're listening to this and you're not a client of Amy's and you're not sure about financial advice and financial planning, just engage, have a conversation. You know, if you take nothing away from it, fine. It might be the wrong time or the wrong person. But what an experience, the fact of going through that journey with somebody mentoring and coaching you through it. It's just groundbreaking. It's a game changer.
It is a game changer.
Take it, have it.
Thank you. Now, I also wanted to, I mean, we're kind of running out of time here, but I wanted to talk to you. We'll have to get you back.
Wait, we're on set 2.
Yeah, because the other, I mean, some of the work that you do is quite groundbreaking in terms of really wowing businesses, making businesses, clients go, wow, I feel so valued as a client to be in this business. So you really coach financial planning practices, but I sort of think a lot of that could be relatable to many entrepreneurs, because if you're in service, you want to impress people and you want them to come back to you. So you've got, there's a little snippet on your website where you sort of go through quite a lot of examples of how to make someone just feel so amazing, because they are amazing. And that's what our job is to do, is make people really aware of how amazing they are. And I don't think people realize what financial advisors actually do. They think we're just nerds behind a desk that talk about money, but the money is actually only a small part of it. As we've talked about, the big picture is, you know, how we feel, where our value is, but how you instill that in others. Do you mind sharing that a little bit about how you get businesses to turn things around and actually really show value to their clients?
Yeah, to be honest, you know, it's very simple. So there's lots of ideas. I mean, whether you're in business or a financial planning practice, there's a book I wrote with a financial planner in who works out of Thunder Bay in Canada, and it's called The Little Book of Wow. Now, yes, granted, it's written for financial planners to implement a wow client journey. But to be fair, any business owner could buy that book and read that book, right? So we're humans. And there's a great quote from Maya Angelou, which is, and I'm paraphrasing because the words right now escape me, but it's basically, people will never remember what you did, what you said. They'll never remember any of that. Like me and you could engage and we could say 1 million words in our hour and a half or whatever. The only thing that I will ever remember is how you made me feel. So when you talk about the interactions with me and you saw me there and any relationship, the only power I have over you and the thing that I have the control over is how you feel, how I deliberately make you feel. So I write these presentations and it's lots of words in them, but ultimately the only thing that's in my mind when I write an interaction or a presentation or do anything, and there is relevance to the story, is how I want you to feel during our interaction and after our interaction, right?
Yes.
So any business needs to focus on if you were my financial planner and you were trying to lure me in as a prospective client and you wanted to wow me and you wanted to absolutely blow my socks off, you have to focus on how you want to make me feel, right? And in order to do that, you have to be reminded that I have 5 senses, 5 of them. So I'm going to listen to your words, but I also have sight. I also have smell. I also have taste, and I also have touch. So effectively, in order to absolutely blow me away, you have to design a service, an interaction, an experience that hits each of my 5 senses. So down to, you know, when all the world opens up and I come and visit you in your office, you know, you might have a nice smelling office with a particular scent that's been designed to relax people as they walk in. If you visit somebody at home, you pick a certain scent of perfume that, you know, has a particular, it might be jasmine or it might be lavender, and that's your scent. And that when you walk into that person's home, it's Amy's smell. Amy, what perfume are you wearing, Amy? It's all done deliberately. And you can extend that, and I'm just touching on scent, but you can do that. So we say to clients things like, when you send a birthday card, put some scent on it. This is not like seedy, horrible love letter sort of stuff. This is, and at the same time, that scent matches the same scent in your office, the candles that are burning, or the incense that's in the office meeting room. And then when it's Christmas time, send a candle with the same scent on it. So we've got 5 sensors. You have to trigger them all of them.
Wow, powerful.
The quality of the paper that goes in the report, the quality of the binder, or the ink that's used, or the pen that you use when you're sitting in front of a client. If you're standing there with a beautiful Mont Blanc pen, and you're sitting there with a beautiful notepad, and the client's like looks at you and thinks, God, I must be really important. She's got the posh pen out. Not the chewed up, biro that's with the folded up corners. I've got a notepad that's in a mulberry. I've not got 5 of these. I've got 1, and I saved up to buy it from the airport. But this is a mulberry bound with a beautiful notepad. When I pull that out, it looks impressive to the people that I'm with. So it's just simple. Hit the 5 senses. Focus on what they are, how they can be triggered, how they can be stimulated, and you will never go far wrong. Never.
Well,
Ever.
ultimately, it makes someone feel important.
Of course
Comes
it
back
does.
down to that whole message. I think this whole episode's really coming down to that key word of self-worth.
Yeah, and it might be important, but you know what? It might be inspired. It might be at ease. It might be comfortable. It might be any of those words. If I, my ultimate, going on to this video with you, I want to make every single person feel inspired. That's it. There's one
That's
word.
your gift.
One word.
You definitely
One word,
do.
right? But you know what? I'm still just a girl. I'm still just a mom. I'm still going to go and do dinner tonight. I'm still going to go and do my chores around my house. But it's by design, right? Because I'm here to do a job. And I think anybody in business that's interacting with another human, they've got to leave themselves behind. And when you're servicing, and I came across an amazing quote years ago by a guy that run a boutique hotel in the Cotswolds in England. And he said, and he was asked the question, what's the key to your business? He said, I turned servicing into serving, right? And I sat in this audience and I was like, oh my bloody God. And it was just like, and I was like, that's it. Any planner, any business owner can service, but they can't serve unless they do it on purpose. Yes. And that's the difference. And you do it by hitting your 5 senses. Simple, one idea.
Brilliant.
And it's the simplest thing, because it's all about the other person then, not about you. They're not your 5 senses, they're their 5 senses. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. And your key thing, you just said you want someone to go away feeling inspired, absolutely is what you do. And that's when I first heard you speak, I was incredibly inspired, and I wanted to know, how do I bring wow into my business? How do I wow people?
Yeah.
It's gone beyond that for me. I sort of think you bring so much more. I mean, that is, you wow people in so many ways. But in this just small time that we've had, this near hour, you've certainly inspired and wowed me by sharing these very, very important messages. And I hope everyone who hears this shares this and jumps onto your website and follows you on social media and connects with you.
Please do. And,
so can you
share stories? Yeah, absolutely. Just one thing to close, Amy, and I will, because it links to self-worth, and I think it's really important, is people dismiss their gut instinct all of the time, and it's the strongest quality that I have. If something doesn't feel right, it's because it isn't. If I think someone's behavior is bad, it's because it is. If I think someone's been out of order, it's because they have. And self-worth and self-appreciation also has to link directly into your own personal standards. So if you think someone's behaving badly to you, or has made a wrong decision that you don't agree with, or said something that's offended you, you absolutely have to say that that's upset you, or you don't think that behavior is right. And if they argue with you, stand your ground. Because part of, you know, we've been doing some work around, you know, and as I'm sure you've experienced it with clients who have been financially abused, and where, you know, relationships are broken down and just poor behavior. If those people would have followed their gut instinct and read their gut instinct and trusted their gut instinct at the beginning, they wouldn't end up in half the trouble that they were in, and had that bravery to execute. So I just wanted to really close before the contact details with, you know, there's no excuse for bad behavior, none at all. You know, there's no excuse to be around people that you feel aren't good for you, because if you feel they're not good for you, it's because they're not. That's your body telling you that it's not the way it should be. So please, anybody that's watching that's not happy with any aspect of their life, have the bravery and the confidence to do something about it, because it's your superpower. It's everyone's personal superpower to have their life in their own hands, and it's so important, so important. And we've all learnt lessons along the way, right? All of us.
Absolutely.
Right. So yeah, so to find me, you know, Amy is your first port of call. You know, just quickly, I remember seeing you at that same conference you saw me, and you were heavily pregnant. You looked absolutely beautiful. Your blonde hair, it was all flowing. You were shiny and you were glowing, baby glowing, and you had this beautiful bright red lipstick on. And I just remember thinking, she looks amazing. And then I bumped into you at the airport. Do you remember, in the lounge?
Yes, that's right.
And I'm like, where are you going? You're like, I'm going to the races. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, are you tired? Just like, you inspired me, Amy. Like, so don't ever think that you're not, because absolutely you are. But you know, Amy's your first port of call. Like, she's an incredible woman. What this woman can't set her mind to do and flip and execute is just not worth doing, right? What she pulls out in the park is incredible. So Amy's your first port of call, but anybody can reach out to me. So I'm on Facebook as Michelle Hoskin. You can connect with me personally. I've got my Little Miss Wow on Facebook. I've got Little Miss Wow on Instagram. I'm Little Miss Wow on Twitter. And then, of course, I've got the Standards International website, which is standardsinternational.co.uk. Or reach out to me. I'm Michelle at standardsinternational.co.uk. And just connect. Let's all support each other through whatever's going on in life. And, you know, we deserve to have an amazing life. That's it.
Thank you so much. Well, I look forward to sending this out to everyone.
Good. I'm glad. And I'll share some of the resources I've spoken about with you. And obviously, you can share the workbook, you know, do whatever you want with it. So it's yours.
Excellent. Okay.
All right.